Welcome to this week's episode of Eye Africa, where you know how I like to mix it up for you. In the very first segment, I have the man that has stolen the hearts of Zimbabwe, and that is Doc Vikela. And from there, we all head to a fine dining academy because we've got to talk to the chefs, right? So that they let us know what to do and where to go with our dreams if we want to cook. And then we will wrap it all up with a visual artist. Stay tuned. This is Eye Africa. Eye Africa searches for inspiration and innovation in all areas of popular culture, from fashion and design through to architecture, art, food, and travel. The focus is on outstanding individuals doing extraordinary things on the African continent. The show presents creatives in their home nations, visiting renowned designers, musicians, architects who are leaving their mark on the young continent. Join me, your host, Rugare Mdupani, as we take a round trip across Africa and get to be inspired, motivated, and future-oriented. Eye Africa, celebrating the African story. Welcome to this week's very first segment of Eye Africa, and I'm joined by someone who's definitely been cracking you up for quite a while. Not only is he a comedian, but he's also a producer. He's also an actor, and now he's added another feather into his cap because he is the unstoppable force that is Doc Vikela.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm great, thanks. How are you doing?
No, I'm okay.
It's good to have you on the show.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm happy, you know.
All right, so let me start with your journey as a comedian. What inspired that? I mean, you're one of the pioneers of the comedy sector in Zimbabwe. What inspired that?
I think inspiration comes from passion. Passion of things. If you love something, you do everything within your power to achieve it.
Yes.
So the journey tracks back to 16 years ago.
Yeah.
16 years ago, a young boy then trekking from Gweru, small town, to Harare, a big jungle, you know, and you don't know what to do. Lean on the side, trying to make sure your voice is heard and people get a piece of what you like.
Yeah.
Ichienda mugomo inenge ichiti ndanovaratidza isingazoti mugomo macho it's just but a drop.
Yes.
So I thought what I thought was entertainment coming from Gweru, coming this side, was then proven not to be, because then I started learning the craft and honing my skills to become a better presenter, a better comedian, a better communicator, a better entertainer. Yeah. So it's been 16 years now.
16 years now. Didn't you ever get the comments, Saka uruda kuto jigane kusekesa vanhu?
Yes, in the first there was really resistance in the first 3 years, because fast forward to 2012, that's when 2013, that's when it started making sense.
Okay.
But before, from 2009, and then it was just like, like you, what are you doing? Hey, stop it, don't do this and stuff. And by then also I was getting gigs, because also as an actor with the background of doing drama, theater, I was getting gigs like at Haifa, doing plays here and there, but still in the Sanders better from a place perspective, better from drama perspective. Kuti nditori mfana as early as what ndaita madrama mudeni ndaioneka drama kanga inzi giant pamunyati. So ka drama kanga ndaito extra mudeni chiita multiple characters, and then people would laugh around those things. So the background yanga yatogara yatosetwa, and now fast forward to this time ndaitofunga ndakaipa, but then I was humbled by the environment, started learning 1, 2, 3, and that's when we then, I can say, revolutionized the scene of stand-up comedy. Because remember, at that time, there was Kao Joshua Ncube, who was on a trailblazing path, and then there was nothing around the collectivism of comedy.
Yes,
so we came up with Simba the Comic King and said, let's form Simuka Comedy, a platform where young talent can be heard. We were the young talent.
Yes, you were the young talent.
So we're the young talent. So we managed to strike a deal where we're performing at the Book Cafe frequently, and it reaped the rewards. Because in our second, third year, there was growth. You know, like palinonzi broad-based empowerment here.
Yes.
Empowerment, and I say uti no pure hove kunzi chirima hove idzikati mbeu. I think the idea kuti inindri murimi woenda undotsvaka zvikwanisiro zvekuti hove dzako survive. So for us, we made sure we looked for the platforms. They are there. but kana usina kutsvaka unogona kufunga kuti pamwe wakaroiwa.
And I also remember that's where you have some guys like you gave the platform to Comic Pasta.
Yes.
Long John.
They are all products of the Simuka Academy.
Come on now,
yeah,
come on.
So what we were intentional about what we're doing is the philosophy has always been get good. Get good, get seen, get paid. That's my philosophy for life.
Okay.
Get good, get seen, get paid. So that philosophy, I've carried it even since then, that the moment I got good, by 2013, I felt in my blood that no, bore.
Yeah.
So I realized that Long John was the class of 2012, thereabouts, and then Comic Pasta, the class of 2013, then Anabutis, Nana Boskeda, the class of 2014, and then as everything transpired, as time went by, I continued to nurture young comedy talent, teaching them the basics of how to write a joke.
Yeah, okay.
Set up punchline, set up punchline, set up punchline, set up punchline. As modest and simple as it is, it helped to hone and craft many careers in the comedy industry per se.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is very prolific. Now you have birthed, aside from just a Simuka, right? You've got Simuka TV, you've got the Comedy Club, and you've also got the Academy. Tell us a bit about that.
So what we did was, it was very intentional in saying we don't have, so comedy is a genre of theater, which is a subsector of the entertainment industry. So you realize that we are an offshoot of a branch of the tree. So for us to make sure that we grow, takazi kuti tisakatire. So sesakatire takati takuzvidzura tunodyara tega. Whereas now we have a school and academy where we train young talent. So young people who feel like, I want to make people laugh. Right? Simuka Academy is there to make sure guys come through, and we don't charge an arm and a leg. No. It's purely operational. No. We are hiring this space for this. We are hiring this room for this. Contribute towards this, because it was merely more of us giving back and trying to grow a complement. Yes. Imagine uchida kuti uri kudada ni 10% of a rabbit. I mean 10% of a rabbit pamwe kutsoka apana chari kufaira nacho. So that the academy was like that, and it has grown from leaps and bounds. Like it was a new school comedy right now. They were honed here.
Wow.
So like for the past 5-6 years, I've had a class of minimum of 20 young aspiring comedians. But so kudaro vanhu vazhinji vanoenda kuuniversity ondotora degree, but not everyone who then succeed in the field that they have trained for. So vamwe vakabva vangozosiyawo vakatanga kungotengesawo hembe, vamwe vakatanga kushandawo mumacompanies, malawyer but those that persevered are now shining to the world. Then the TV side, we produce web-based content and television content for TV stations. Okay. We realized that there's hunger for comedy in the market. In the market for in the television houses themselves, that there is no intention from producers to produce content. We are a comedy house. We live, we dream, we sleep comedy. So as it were, we have writers, we have actors. We said, let's now produce content. And our first breakthrough project was Special Class. Okay. Special Class, it took the world by storm. Even right now, I'm in the negotiation table for season 4 with the television houses across Zim. You know, the partners of the government. I want to thank the government, because what they did was, it was timeous to say to open television stations. And we have ZBC, we have other television stations that have come and say, we want content. What it does is, market yagona flexibility ndikapa ZBC wo each ndondopangana each. At the end of the day, we get a livelihood. So right now we have about 4 sitcoms that are commissioned across the 3. And so I've got 4. The other station has got 2. 5 actually. Wow. Because on ZBC I have 2. So I've got 5. This is purely comedy. Yes. We have the first ever stand-up comedy series. Your Def Jam comedy. Yeah. Your United Apollo. So we've got the Doc Vikela show that we have on ZTV. And we also have another sitcom that has been commissioned called Auntie Jenny, again for ZTV. This is purely comedy. And then we've got other 3 sitcoms with other television stations. So the TV side, we graduated from a web-based comedy productions to now where we are saying we're catering for everyone who's in the home, because as we send up a YouTube, Special Class. Yeah. More on YouTube, but other people that are traditional. They want traditional
They want to
media.
sit as a family in front of the TV.
Eat popcorn, not running a phone park. You know. So the television side, that's that. But still on the website, we still do web series, short-based format, and other private works like my documentaries, my mockumentaries, and so on and so on. That's the TV side.
So, Doc, before I let you go, I've got to ask you to just drop a little something for us.
Okay. I was going to give you a hybrid because I would love to do that voice, right?
Okay.
But I will get to that voice within what I'm trying to do for you, right?
All right, perfect.
So I started comedy with this joke. This is the joke that I did, and then this is the joke that made me buy my first car.
Okay.
But now it's a hybrid because I'm going to incorporate Mukuru in the joke, right?
Right.
So the joke goes like, I used to go on stage. You look at my color; I'm quite of the challenge in terms of pigmentation. So I'll talk about how dark I am, and how hard it is for me as a young comedian to come to Harare and be able to fit. Because imagine I'm dark, like I'm dark. I'm like quarter to midnight. Okay, a minute to midnight. I'm so dark. Ndikamira parts of the midziro, but I'm koto. It's like an alley. No, I'm so dark. Like ndikamira msango kamitsubi. Igwe unoza kamuka kushiba kekuti kari kuti kana Mike Samba akasangana neni anditika vanotowana an idea for a show kuchingamidza vadiwa vatariri kuchirongwa chenyu cheMike Samba show motaura nyaya dzinonesa magariro edu, nyaya dzakafanana nekusviba madikani. Aiwa, muchirongwa tine nyanzvi masvikira panyaya yekusviba tina baba Alek Macheso, sanganai nevanhu kuvhara vanhu vashe Mike Samba nyama nomweya zviri pamwepo regai ritavire kuti nyaya yekusviba kana zvakadaro sakangaibate. Aiwa, chiri musakasaka chinongozvinzwira atine mukomana ari kusumukira, tina mukoma Sulumani Chimbetu, sanganai nevanhu. Thank you so much. Munoziya Mike Samba zimwe zvinhu zvacho zinopedza pawa, but thank you so much. Munoziya ndataura nezuro zvangu chiti vanhu vanongotarira but kana dzanyaya dzekusviba idzi inopata kuti vandifungisa kwedu kusaruwe. Aiwo, chiri musakasaka chiromba chitinzwira asika hatingapedzi nhau tisina kuipendera. Tina baba mukuru wedu, tinzwa kuti vanoti kudii nevana vavo vanotungamira vane ganda rakadairi. Hai, vindafara handiti vari uri maoko ivo Mike Samba takati ndovo muno handiti nyika inovakwa nevene vayo. Ndataura zuro naMike ati bodo vanhu vose vane ganda hachati vakasviba handiti sotongi rakapfumvudzira ngavarye mukaka uchinovandudzwa uye namatemba mbozivai manditi very good zvakanaka chidzima chikomana. Saka imwe mukavona yezvimwe naAfrica Africa isingamuruki mozova kuti mari yesvo handiti ndopandoti musoro wambiya wako. Hallelujah. Yeah, thank you.
That was Doc Vikela, the man himself, right here on the very first episode of Eye Africa. Eye Africa searches for inspiration and innovation in all areas of popular culture, from fashion and design through to architecture, art, food, and travel. The focus is on outstanding individuals doing extraordinary things on the African continent. The show presents creatives in their home nations, visiting renowned designers, musicians, architects who are leaving their mark on the young continent. Join me, your host, Rugare Mdopani, as we take a round trip across Africa and get to be inspired, motivated, and future-oriented. Eye Africa, celebrating the African story. Eye Africa searches for inspiration and innovation in all areas of popular culture, from fashion and design through to architecture, art, food, and travel. The focus is on outstanding individuals doing extraordinary things on the African continent. The show presents creatives in their home nations, visiting renowned designers, musicians, architects who are leaving their mark on the young continent. Join me, your host, Rugare Mdopani, as we take a round trip across Africa and get to be inspired, motivated, and future oriented. Welcome to the very second segment of this week's episode of Eye Africa. You know, I'm a foodie for days, and I had to come to the Fine Dining Chefs Academy, where I'm joined today by Chef Tyler. Hello, Chef Tyler.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm great, thanks. Now tell us about the academy. What was the vision and why did you see the need to establish an academy right here in Zimbabwe?
Well, funny story actually is that the school actually started first as a catering company and, serving, weddings, all the different events that you could think of. And then this was actually done by the founder, Tracy. But as we went forward, we actually met, the school itself actually is founded by 3 chefs who were in class together. And there was a need to sort of give back to the community, where we thought to ourselves, we've got a set of ideas. We want to also be just the same as other schools, internationally. So how do we establish a school, or how do we bring up the next chef who can, push Zim cuisine forward?
What is the value of a chef, honestly? Because when we think of chefs, we kind of think of a restaurant. I'll encounter a chef in a restaurant. But in the Zim perspective, why is it so important to be professionally training chefs in fine dining?
Well, I would answer that by saying, well, the first reason we eat food initially is for survival. But we're some of the only creatures that love food for its pleasurable qualities, and it makes people happy. And I think that's value. I mean, if you go to an event, you cook for people, you make them happy, you are part of, that, like the highlight of that event, and most likely they won't forget you because of that. So I think, chefs are very, very, very valuable because it's one of the aspects that makes people happy.
So let's say I come and I enroll here, right? What are my career prospects? Am I only just working in a restaurant, or I'm just going to start catering events? What are my prospects?
Well, that's actually the fun part.
Yeah.
You don't have to work in a restaurant. You don't have to work in a hotel. Being a part of the hospitality industry, and specifically in the cooking area, you have a wider range. I mean, if you do want to start a restaurant, that's also cool. But you could be a private chef. Someone could hire you. You could cook for them. You could be hired by a nutritionist. They might recommend a specific diet. You could be a part of that. Or some people are in the creative aspect of it. They want to be able to take certain types of ingredients in food and push that forward, and start their own pop-up. So I think there's so many ways that you could expand your career as a chef.
You spoke of pop-ups. How are you embracing the pop-up culture? Because it started in the West, obviously, and you've embraced it. How are you seeing this in the Zimbabwean perspective, and how are people coming through it, and are they embracing it? Is it something that we love as a people?
Well, I think I view pop-ups as sort of like a way to express a certain art form. One of the things that Zim is actually famous for is having an array of wonderful local ingredients. Oh, yes. Which, if you see the typical Zimbabwean, when it's Masao season, you're just gonna eat it, and once the season passes, it's done. And I think in terms of pop-ups, we also sort of are trying to provide different ways of cooking local ingredients, but also at the same level that everyone else does it, because I also just believe that French, Italian cuisine all started by people saying, hey, you know what, this is our food, we love it, let's show people what else we can do with it.
Where do you see the Fine Dining Chefs Academy impacting the local foodie sector in the next, let's say, 3 years?
Well, Fine Dining Chefs Academy, the vision hopefully would be being a very big school in Southern Africa where you have chefs that could be able to also cook at a very high international standard. They could also be on par with some of the top restaurants, and also just really being able to take our own ingredients and just run with it, educate people on what else you could do with Zim cuisine, let's say.
Eye Africa searches for inspiration and innovation in all areas of popular culture, from fashion and design through to architecture, art, food, and travel. The focus is on outstanding individuals doing extraordinary things on the African continent. The show presents creatives in their home nations, visiting renowned designers, musicians, architects who are leaving their mark on the young continent. Join me, your host, Rugare Mdopani, as we take a round trip across Africa and get to be inspired, motivated, and future-oriented. Eye Africa, celebrating the African story. Eye Africa searches for inspiration and innovation in all areas of popular culture, from fashion and design through to architecture, art, food, and travel. The focus is on outstanding individuals doing extraordinary things on the African continent. The show presents creatives in their home nations, visiting renowned designers, musicians, architects who are leaving their mark on the young continent. Join me, your host, Rugare Mdopani, as we take a round trip across Africa and get to be inspired, motivated, and future-oriented. Welcome to the third and final segment of Eye Africa, where I am joined by a figurative painter who's got a story to tell right here at the National Art Gallery. Welcome to you, Mr. Wycliffe Mundofa.
Thank you for having me.
Right, so as we're talking about your paintings, we've walked around and we were talking about this. Can you introduce yourself first and just let the viewers know who you are, Mr. Mdopa?
Okay, my name is Wycliffe Mundopa. I was born in Rusape, and I think I came to... Yes, and then I think I came to Harare when I was around 13, when my father passed away. That's when I moved in with my mother. And I think that's when my journey for paintings begins. Yeah.
So you were supported by your mother. She supported the journey of you being a painter.
Yeah, she supported very well, exactly. Yeah. If it wasn't for her, we were supposed to be here.
Well, this is your second solo show. Can you take us through what's the vision? And I know that we're supposed to come here and we must interpret it by ourselves. But what story were you trying to tell through this exhibition?
Okay, normally when an artist is doing a solo show, it depends what does he want to talk about. But for me, for this show, I did it for my friends, my peers, my relatives, because most of the time you do exhibitions outside the country. Okay. So particularly for this exhibition, I chose it for here so that my friends and peers can come and have fun here.
Okay. I saw a recurring theme, and I mentioned to this to you off camera. I saw the masks. I saw the hyenas right here, right? And there's also a lot of women in your paintings. Why is that?
Okay. As I told you before that I came to Harare when I was around 13, when my father passed away. That's when I was introduced to my mom. So by that time, you are still... You are now a teenager. Yeah. You are still confused with a lot of things. And then you are introduced to your mom for the first time. That gave me by that time I wanted to understand what is it really about my mother, which I was not getting all alone.
Yeah.
So that was the same time I was starting to study art as well. And that's why I decided to focus on trying to understand the female figure, trying to understand,
That was Wycliffe Mundopa who came through, and he was telling us about his journey. I hope you are inspired. If you are an aspiring artist, there are people right here who can actually give you snippets and guide you through your journey. Thank you for staying tuned throughout this segment, this third and final segment of Eye Africa. I'm your host, Rugare. Thank you for staying tuned all the way to the very end. Like I said, I was going to make sure that you laughed. I made sure I brought you a comedian guy to just like lighten up the vibe as we started off the show. Doc Vikela with his impersonations. I bet they had you cracking up just the same way that I was cracking up. And then, like I promised you, the Fine Dining Chefs Academy, wrapped up in a pretty little bow, sent us all the way to the National Arts Gallery, where I spoke to some visual artists. This has been another episode of Eye Africa. I'll see you next week. Stay tuned and stay creative. Eye Africa searches for inspiration and innovation in all areas of popular culture, from fashion and design through to architecture, art, food, and travel. The focus is on outstanding individuals doing extraordinary things on the African continent. The show presents creatives in their home nations, visiting renowned designers, musicians, architects who are leaving their mark on the young continent. Join me, your host, Rugare Mdopani, as we take a round trip across Africa and get to be inspired, motivated, and future-oriented. Eye Africa, celebrating the African story.